MIT researchers unveiled a device called alter ego, and its purpose is remarkable. Listen to this. The device is designed to detect words before they are ever spoken aloud. Not after speech has occurred, but before speech has ever occurred. Think about this for a moment. For most of human history, we have assumed that speech begins when words leave our mouth. Yet, this very technology has challenged that assumption. Now, if a machine can detect speech before speech becomes audible, then what exactly are they detecting? What is it that is present and detectable before words become audible? Stick around and find out, because this might change the way you see words.
Step into parables. The method, the message, the mandate, where parables of the natural reveal the master plan for your life.
Researchers at MIT recently brought a device to market capable of detecting what they call internal speech. And they do this through tiny neuromuscular signals generated before a person has ever spoken a single word aloud. Now think about this for a minute. A device detecting speech before speech ever becomes audible. That's where this starts to get really interesting, because even the name that they gave this device is very interesting. They called it alter ego. And that phrase alone suggests that there's far more occurring within a person than just what becomes audible. And that is exactly what this technology was built to explore. An invisible layer that exists before visible, audible expression, or the alter ego, as they call it. Now, if speech can be detected before it becomes audible, then perhaps what we call speech is not actually the beginning of the communication process like we thought. We now realize that speech itself is downstream of a process already shaping what has yet to be spoken. Think about what this device was actually detecting, because it wasn't detecting audible words. It was detecting structure that was being formed before the words ever became audible. In other words, governing information was already organizing the invisible before expression ever occurred. Now, stay with me here, because this pattern reaches far beyond technology. Today, we live in this culture where we're obsessed with what can be seen. We celebrate the harvest in the summertime, or we celebrate the finished construction project. We celebrate a successful company. We celebrate invention. We're always celebrating the manifestation. But I want you to notice something here. None of these things that we celebrate began the moment that they became these visible constructs. And what I mean by that is, a harvest did not begin when produce broke through the soil. This new building did not begin when the doors first opened. Or a successful company did not begin when everybody began to recognize its success. And inventions, they don't begin when the product reaches the market. Visibility or manifestation is actually announcing that something existed prior to its manifestation. Notice this, because the visible appears, but the visible is never the beginning of a thing. So what we're seeing here is a pattern beginning to develop. And here's the thing about foundational patterns: they're never confined to just a single field of discovery. And once you learn to recognize them, you begin to see them everywhere. And now, nowhere is this pattern more visible than inside of a seed. Now, follow me here, because if a farmer can predict a harvest before the harvest exists, then we may have just discovered something about how reality and manifestation itself works. Consider what happens when a farmer plants a seed. The seed disappears beneath the soil for a moment. Days pass. Nothing appears. To the eyes, there is no harvest, because there is no evidence. There is no visible result. Yet the farmer doesn't panic, does he? He doesn't dig up the field every morning to see if something has been happening while he slept. Why? It's very simple, because the farmer understands that something most of us overlook. The absence of visibility is not the absence of activity. The governing design of the harvest is present within the seed long before it becomes visible within the field. And everything that the field will eventually reveal is already contained within that seed. The field itself does not create the harvest. The field simply reveals the harvest. The harvest appears because the governing design was already present. And this is where the seed starts answering the questions that alter ego raised. Alter ego revealed that governing information is present before speech. The seed reveals that governing information is present before the harvest. Now, these are two different witnesses, yet the same pattern. This is showing us that hidden governing design was directing both outcomes long before either of them became visible. An ancient text has pointed to the same reality. It says it this way: the kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. Notice what was chosen here as the evidence again. In this ancient text, it was a seed, not a temple, not a ritual, not even a tradition, but simply a seed. Why? Well, because the seed is revealing something far deeper than agriculture. The seed was also revealing that governing pattern that is built into all of reality. When the encoded governing information of a seed enters a field, the unseen process begins to occur. Formation begins to occur beneath the surface, and eventually full manifestation will appear because the structure was already there the entire time. The seed has been declaring its structure from the very beginning. And you know something? Long before laboratories studied informational systems, and long before researchers discovered that these same patterns in modern science, creation was already bearing witness to the structure. The seed and the technology are not simply examples. They're parabolic evidence. And now this pattern comes into focus, and suddenly this kingdom statement begins to look a lot different. Let's look at it again. The kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. Why? Why is this looking different? I'll tell you why. Because the kingdom was never being introduced as an institution. It was being revealed as an invisible governing reality. A governing reality that can be observed through the process of the seed and the harvest. A governing reality where information precedes manifestation. A governing reality where hidden design directs visible outcomes. Governing information and design are present long before manifestation appears. They precede visible expression. Because at the end of the day, visible is not the source. The visible is always the witness, always the evidence. It's not the origin. What is visible is the revelation of origin. A harvest reveals governing design that was carried within the seed. And spoken word reveals the intended governing design carried within the process that produced the speech. In both of these cases, governing information organized structure before manifestation ever appeared. Manifestation simply reveals the governing information. Manifestation does not create governing information, because those patterns existed long before the manifestation did. But the deeper revelation is this. Manifestation reveals that hidden governing information was already directing the outcomes. Harvest is not random. Harvest is expected. The harvest reveals the governing information that was carried within the seed. And words, likewise, are not random. Words reveal the governing information carried within the process that produced them. So the manifestation is not random. They're just visible witnesses. And a visible witness reveals that the hidden governing information was directing the outcome long before the outcome became visible. I got to say that again, long before. It points back to the governing pattern that produced it. That is the pattern. Information exists before manifestation. And that is what MIT's technology really revealed. That is what the seed revealed. And once you see it, you begin seeing it everywhere. Imagine being able to predict what is going to manifest before it ever manifests. Now that sounds almost impossible until you realize that that is exactly what the farmer does. He does not predict the harvest by studying the harvest. He predicts by understanding the governing information carried within the seed. The seed tells him what is coming long before the field reveals it. And every manifestation in creation is revealing the same exact reality. Not only that governing information exists, but that hidden governing information was directing the outcome the whole time. Now suddenly a harvest begins to look different, doesn't it? A building begins to look different. Inventions look different. Those successful companies we talked about begin to look different. Not because they have changed, but because now you recognize that every manifestation is a visible witness revealing that hidden information was directing that process and that discovery and that manifestation the entire time. So remember, manifestation is not the beginning. Manifestation simply announces that the governing pattern already existed. Let me bring this together for you like this. The kingdom of God is like a seed carrying a harvest that no one can see yet. Long before the field reveals a single stalk, the harvest is already present. The harvest does not appear because it's created in the field. The harvest appears because it's already present within the governing design carried by the seed and manifested in that field. This is the pattern before manifestation. Begin to look for it. Information always comes before manifestation. The visible reveals what the invisible has been carrying the entire time. Every harvest bears witness to it. Every single seed declares it. And every single manifestation confirms it. I want you to say this declaration of alignment with me. Say, Father, I thank you that your governing realm operates according to order, to design, and to purpose. Father, I thank you that faith gives substance to the things I hope for and the evidence to the things I do not yet see in my life. I choose to align with what you have established because I am no longer governed only by what is visible. Teach me to recognize that what you're doing before, or what you're doing before it ever becomes visible. Teach me to recognize the governing pattern that you've established before manifestation ever appears in my life. Teach me to walk by faith, not by sight. I choose to trust in your order. I choose to trust in your governing word. You know, guys, I kind of try to beat this into your head on this episode, that before every single manifestation occurs, there's going to be information that is governing its potential. And that happens whether it's in relationship, whether it's in business, whether it's in culture, whether it's in family, parenting. There's always information that is going to manifest itself in the end. The problem is, most of us never look to see what the information is that we're relying upon. And then manifestations just simply occur. And now we become victims to our own realities because we haven't governed them. You know, I keep telling you this too, that this conversation has never been about religion. When we talk about the kingdom, we're not talking about these abstract religious constructs. It has nothing to do with religion. It had to do with a governing structure that upholds all of reality and your alignment with that. Hey, before you go, I want to place a free gift in your hands. It's called The Lie of Religion. And if you'd like access to it, just comment lie below and I'll make sure that it reaches you. I'm EJ Hogan. Stay aligned.
Thanks for joining us. I know you're starting to see it. Come back again. There's more to uncover.